Good morning, good people of YouTube. This is your buddy Choppadon coming at you with another episode of Chop Talk, brought to you, of course, by DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things DFS related from MLB to MMA. 20 coaches, 20 contributors, you know the deal. What we're going to do is we're going to dive in. What I ask you to do is go down to the comment section, click the link that makes you a VIP, because I'm going to walk you through some of our tools today, and I'm going to specifically be targeting one of our members who asked a bunch of questions today, and I want to show him how I go through and quickly establish some lineups for slates. And I'm going to do it in a very simplified fashion for everybody so that you guys can understand how to use these tools, how to appropriately mix and match, what numbers to pay attention to, what numbers to ignore. What I'm doing is I'm stripping it down to the gut, stripping it down to the very, very frame. You can add to it as you grow, but in the very, very beginning, let's just focus on the basics. I really don't use much more than this personally on a daily basis, and I've been very consistent in MLB this year. For an inconsistent sport, I've been very consistent, and I'm posting some of the better numbers I've ever posted based on these tools that I'm getting ready to show you. So click that link in the comment section, use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, because friends don't let friends pay retail. And let's dive in and take a look at some of these tools. Now, if you are brand new to MLB, you don't hardly understand the sport, the only person you know is maybe Mike Trout or Bryce Harper or Giancarlo Stanton, good on you, because that actually removes all of your biases, all of your fan favorites and everything, and it actually makes you a better analytical person when it comes to building lineups. Here's what I'm going to tell you to do, though. Those great big slates like today on a Tuesday, those massive 12 and 14 game slates can be overwhelming. So let's cut it down. Let's focus on a mini slate, 4 games, 5 games, in some cases 3 games. Today we've got 3 games to look at. I've already closed those out on the late slate, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of how we're going to pick and identify some players. So we're going to go in and we're going to play with the optimizer today at DFS Army. So what I'm looking at, I start with the pitchers tab here, and I'm looking at DFSA grade. That's what's sorting those players out. I want to see what kind of gaps we have. Do we have big advantages? Not really. We've got maybe an 80 in Garrett Cole, not a great matchup, but the best one on this particular slate. And then some mediocre matchups down here in minor Molly League. Maybe a little bit of, yeah, that's about it. Beria and Black, or at Black, whatever, are actually stackable against. So we'll keep our eyes out for Cincinnati and Houston, because those low rating, if a guy's rated high and we want to use him, a guy that's rated low, we want to stack against him. I'm going to scroll all the way over here as I'm showing you obviously all of the tools and the stuff that this thing has, which is just mind-boggling. There it comes. Vegas info. We got a big favorite in Garrett Cole. The rest of them, not so much. Okay? So, you know, not big implied team totals, not big run totals, not big game totals, whatever. 4.6, 4.5, that's okay. So it doesn't look like it's going to be necessarily indicated by Vegas to be a real offensive slate today, but it does look like Vegas loves Garrett Cole or Houston to win the game. So now that doesn't mean Garrett Cole is going to win the game. He might pitch 5-6 innings and they're, you know, 1-1, 2-2, something like that, and then all of a sudden they win it in the 9th and Houston wins the game. Vegas was right, but you know, you don't win with Garrett Cole because he didn't get the decision. That's fine. That's baseball. But it is an indication that Houston should safely win the game. And if Houston should safely win the game, then that's a good spot for our starting pitcher to get the win, if that makes sense. What I'm looking for when it comes to these pitchers is this K-score that I always talk about. It's a sliding scale. It shows you the opponent's handedness and how often they strike out, and it shows you the pitcher's strikeout potential and how often they strike batters out. If one guy, you know, what we're looking at here is high strikeout potential here for Cole and Minor, but they're facing teams that don't strike out that much. Then you look over here and you see Molly and Leak, 2 pitchers that don't strike a lot of people out but happen to be facing teams that do strike out a lot. So now how does that work? Which one's better? Well, I don't know any more than you do. So the only way that I can actually compartmentalize that and quickly assess the numbers is to add these two numbers together, 26.7 and 19.4, and get the highest total number, because that's the highest number of strikeouts and the highest number of a team that strikes out, and that's the one that's got the most potential on the slate. And believe it or not, over the past 1.5 to 2 years since I've been doing this, it works pretty well. Is it foolproof? No, but it does work pretty well. And there's a little trick in here I'll show you today that actually worked up when I was kind of doing some of these numbers. 26 and 19 is what? 45. So 45, 461. If I take the decimal out, 461 when I add those 3 digits together. What's this? 438. So 460 and 440, not a big advantage. When I look down here, 450, 464. So another 460, 460, 440, 460, and then down here again, 438. So 440-ish, 437. So I've got 460, 440, 460, 440. What that tells me, though, is these are all about the same. It tells me that Molly has the same strikeout potential as Garrett Cole today. Now, that might not be true. I mean, Garrett Cole's a better strikeout pitcher, of course, but LA's better at making contact. So if Molly's on his stuff, he could have more strikeouts, 6, 7, 8 strikeouts on the night, and Garrett Cole might only have 4 or 5. So that's what I'm looking at for strikeout potential. I'm going to take these two numbers, but 460 is better than 440. I'm going to lean a little bit on Garrett Cole because he's got the 180 favorite coming out of Vegas that I showed you. He's also very, very expensive. He's not going to afford me a lot of bats. So there's two things that we can do here. This is just kind of theory speak, but what you're going to see is when I'm adding these two numbers together, I'm going to lean on Garrett Cole, and that's going to very much be more expensive than any other bat on the slate. So I'm going to be pigeonholed into finding value bats. And when I'm pigeonholed into finding value bats, so is everybody else that's on the slate running Garrett Cole. So if Garrett Cole's the overwhelming chalk because he carries the big favorite, he is, a Houston pitcher who's having a great night or a great season and is striking out more batters, everybody's going to run to him, and without many options on these smaller slates, he's going to be mega chalk. The only reason he won't be mega chalk is somebody finds a viable second party that's a lot cheaper to run off to. Is Molly that guy, Minor that guy, Leak that guy? I doubt it. These guys will probably all chop up the rest of the ownership, but most of it will probably go to Garrett Cole. So everybody's going to be building their lineups mostly the same way, all using the same value bats, all using the same, because on a smaller slate, we've got a smaller player pool to pick from anyway. But what you're looking at is if you want to get off the chalk and you want to get contrarian and you hope Garrett Cole comes out flat tonight, then you're going to want Minor, Molly, Leak, somebody like that, and you're going to have a whole different load of bats because you're going to be able to afford a whole lot bigger load of bats. Make sense? So and it doesn't matter that everybody chose, if we run the really expensive bats, let's say, we've got LA on the slate, so Mike Trout, we've got Houston on the slate, so Correa and Altuve and whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're running Garrett Cole, you can probably afford one of those bats. It won't be Trout. Trout could be rather contrarian tonight. It might be Springer, or it might be Correa, or it might be Altuve. Some of those guys. It might even be a Joey Votto, Nelson Cruz. Some of the more expensive guys. The reason why it's going to go that way is because nobody has any options to pick from. But when you drop down here to these cheaper bats, now you can go up there and you can get 2 or 3 or 4 of those guys as opposed to just one in your lineup. And that's what's going to set you apart. It doesn't matter that Mike Trout is 70% owned. What matters is that Mike Trout and George Springer and Carlos Correa are not in everybody else's lineups. They're only in yours. So if they all have good games, guess what? You're unique. And that's really all you're trying to do. That's how you can be unique with the chalk. But anyway, and when we dive in a little bit deeper, that's just pitchers. Let's say because of the higher strikeout potential, I'm on Garrett Cole and Tyler Mahle tonight because that's where I'm going to be. I can automatically tell you that. When I go to the today's batter matchups, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut down to these 3 games, and I'm going to start looking down here for this team. What teams are hitting the front page? Cincinnati, 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 Cincinnati. So 4 spots. San Francisco, 2 spots, 3 spots. Seattle, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 spots for Seattle, tied with Cincinnati. LA, 1 spot. Texas, 1 spot. Houston, 4 spots. So I see 4 spots for Houston, 4 for Cincinnati, 4 for Seattle. Those are my lead dogs on the slate. Those are my lead offenses based on matchups. I can already tell you these are the ones. Now, there's no overwhelming set of bats. There's 4 from Cincinnati, 4 from Seattle, 4 from Houston. There's not an overwhelming number of bats. So what I'm going to try and do is today is leaning a little bit more towards maybe a balanced build. And so if you followed yesterday's video and we talked about cash and GPPs, building lineups for both, and a sliding scale of hybrids in between, what you notice is that I'm going to let the slate come to me. And what the slate is dictating to me today is that it's a little more balanced build. Okay, now because there are 4 Seattle bats on here, I can stack up all 4 Seattle bats and run it GPP if I want to. I can really build this little small 3-game slate either way and be okay with it. If I click off the batter matchups here and show you just the overall, and run, all of these in there together. And look, there's a Colorado, a Cincinnati, a Boston, LA, New York, Atlanta, LA. Okay, so there's some Dodgers, a couple of Philly bats. What else do we see? Boston only in 2 spots, Detroit, San Francisco, Baltimore, Minnesota. So only a couple of twosies and maybe a threesie. What that's telling me again is on this main slate, we're looking at a more balanced approach. I don't see an overwhelming offense up there that I should be stacking. Can I stack? Of course I can stack. But if I'm just doing 2 from here, 2 from there, 2 from there, 2 from there, I can build a very balanced lineup that's going to lean me more towards cash games. So I'm going to take my contest allocation, come out of the GPPs a little bit, and go more towards head-to-head, small leagues, things like that. Because I'm more balanced and I'm more 50-50. I'm not taking the upside of a massive chalk stack of 4 bats. Instead, I'm taking 2 from this offense, 2 from that offense. So I'm letting the slate dictate to me where I'm going to build my lineup and what contests I'm then going to enter it in based on how much upside the lineup has. I'm not going to force the issue and go all of a sudden run 4 Kansas City Royals into the slate when the numbers are telling me out of our tool that it doesn't like Kansas City Royals today. Okay, I might do that in some great big GPP if I just wanted to take a shot or 2 at it, but the bulk of my play today is going to be in cash games. And I think that you should probably learn to do the exact same thing because different slates vary differently. When I go down to that 3-game slate, now all of a sudden those, Houston and Seattle and Cincinnati bats pop back up to the top, and if I want to stack them, I can stack them, and if I don't have to. I've got plenty of options on this particularly small slate. Okay, now the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down to positions, and if you remember, I'm going to look for the hotter hitters. I'm on the wrong tab. I need to be in our trends tab. But when I cut down to positions, I can see Belt, Votto, Healy, Zunino. These guys are all up top. So when I cut over to our trends tab, same 3 games, and let's say I go with those guys, what I like to look for is I like to look for the trending WOBA tab. Okay? Now, for my cash games, I like to look for OBP, and I can find that back on the main batter page. I'll show you that in a second. But I like to use the WOBA tab. It's a good catch-all cash game type stat. And if I'm just looking for the basics of what players am I looking for, I want the guys that are running hot. Joey Votto, 375 WOBA. It's not his norm, and he's regressing. His trajectory is down a little bit, but 375 is still okay. And Cincinnati's in a good spot tonight. Ryan Healy's hot. Play him. Mike Zunino's relatively hot. Play him. Tucker Barnhart, hot, play him. So I might choose these 2 guys, Healy and Barnhart, over Votto tonight in cash. Because I don't care so much about a particular offense in cash. What I care about is the best plays within, and getting some value and getting some balance and getting some bang for my buck. And I'm going to need that value of Barnhart or maybe Healy, maybe a Zunino and Barnhart if I'm going to be using Garrett Cole at $11,000. I need to be keeping my eyes out for that. When I look over at second base, again, I'm looking for who are the hotter. Oh, looky there, Scooter Gennett, 3,700. I might have to pay up for Scooter Gennett because all the others are fairly cold. Maybe Ian Kinsler. So knowing that, I know where to start my construction. I'm going to want some Scooter Gennett because that's more of a positional scarcity thing. When I look at third base, when it's positional scarcity means there just are not a lot of options, top options. When there are not a lot of top options, then I'm forced to kind of pay for the top option. When there are a lot of top options that are all matched up about the same, I can take the value and take the cheaper one. He's in the same spot the others are in. Third base, again, looking at the grades, looking at the hot. Well, now I've got 3 guys to pick from here. And Pablo Sandoval is pretty cheap, so there's another value play if I want. And I do this with all of those different positions in the Trends tab. What I do is I then take that into my domination station. And I'm showing you this because when I choose the main slate, I don't think I've got, I don't have the other slates loaded yet, just the main. And I'm going to come down here and make sure there's players in the player pool. And if I'm only using the main slate, that's fine. I just uncheck these boxes and turn all of these offenses off and only run the 3 games on that late slate. And my player pool is only those guys in that 3-game slate. I don't mess with any of this stuff yet. Well, I do this one. I'm going to pump out the 5 lineups, 3 unique players, because I want it to force a few in and out that are different players. The unique players is going to make sure that it has 3 different players in each lineup that I have, 3 different combinations of players, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to click Optimize on my first run, and I'm going to see who the domination station likes, because it uses our projections, whereas the research station just uses numbers. Oftentimes they come up with different numbers. Yep, it loves Garrett Cole. It likes Mike Leake second. That's interesting. Likes Buster Posey. Texas Odor, interesting. Kyle Seager, a little bit of balance because it's only got 3 of the 5. Segura, likes Segura. Cruz in all 5. Springer in just the 1. McCutchen and Blanco, and then down here, Blanco. It's going to like me some Gregor Blanco. Okay, so now that I know that, I've got an idea of the value plays that I'm going to be seeing tonight. Do I agree with it? Sure, I guess. Here's where I start playing with the domination station. Now, I told you that I like Garrett Cole just fine, and I also like Tyler Mahle. So I can use this little smiley face right here, and watch this. The projections are right over here, right? 26.964. When I jack him 10%, all of a sudden it changed to 29.66. Now I'm going to re-click Optimize. And it still likes Garrett Cole, and it still likes, okay, so that wasn't enough. So I got to go back in here. If I want, I can click him to Adore, change him to another 15%. Does it start liking him? If I optimize it again, and this is the part that takes a while. You've got to have some patience when it comes to this tool. No, it doesn't. So guess what? I still got to go more. So let's say I take him up to 34. What I'm wanting to do is start mixing him in with Garrett Cole, and I want him to do it randomly. Because if I just automatically slap a minimum exposure of, say, 20% on him, sure, he's going to appear in 20% of my lineups, but he's going to appear after it gets done loving Garrett Cole. So when it shows all my lineups, it's going to be Garrett Cole, and then Mahle. I don't like that. I want them to mix in equally, my pitchers. And I can do this with 2 pitchers, I can do this with 6 pitchers, but this is how we start doctoring the DS. Now you can see I've got all the Mahle in there. Well, I didn't want that either, so what I got to do? I got to back him down. There's Garrett Cole coming back a little bit. So now watch. If I back him down just a smidge more, 32.6, let's say, I should start getting him mixing in Mahle, Cole, Mahle. Let's cut him down just one more to 0.5, 32.5. Mahle, Cole. Boom, got it. This will change when you doctor your stacks around. But now I know at least I'm on the right track. I've got a decent spread. Now, if I wanted to, I can take this back out, and I can start upping my play a little bit. Let's say 12 lineups, 3 uniques. If I want to tighten it up, I can do 2 uniques, but let's leave it at 3. Let's run 12 lineups and see what happens. Mahle, Cole, Leak. Still loves him some Leak today. So I'm going to file that away in my brain. For a GPP lineup, I might take a shot at Mike Leak. I trust the DS, the domination station. I trust the RS, the research station. I trust these tools that we use in DFSArmy.com, but I also am going to put my own personality into it. So when I scroll down here, I made 12 lineups, and I've got Mahle in 6, Cole in 5, and then, of course, Leak in 1. If I want to shift that around a little bit, I can take, the numbers and doctor them up a little bit more. I can also, maybe max the exposure on Mahle now that he's mixing in evenly to, instead of 100% of my lineup, say I only want him in 3. So that would be 25% of my 12. And now when I max that out or optimize that, I should get Mahle in just 3 of my lineups. He's in 3 right there. It capped him. It brought Leak into the fold, though, as a result. So if I wanted to get real cute, I can bump, Garrett Cole half a point or something like that, and then probably get him running. But I'm just going to run with this for now, just for speed and to show you. Now, what I do next, after I've got this sort of set up the way I like it, if I wanted to, I could play with all of the teams. I could go down through here, and I like Haniger some, and so I click love on him, and I don't like Upton, so I can click dislike him, and I can start tweaking these projections. And I don't do this with all of the players because, like I said, I generally trust the machine that we're paying for, that our subscription pays for. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to control the stacking. The stacking rules. Do I want 2 players from this team and 2 players from that team, or do I want to run a full-on 4-on-4? Well, am I playing GPPs or am I playing cash? A nice balanced way for me to run hybrid lineups is 3 and 3. It's just what I like to do. Now, on a shorter slate like this, I might run 4 and 4. But remember, we saw Houston and Cincinnati and Seattle all evenly mixed with 4 guys on that front page. So I'm going to take Houston and run them and say 50% of my lineup. Seattle and say 50% of my lineup. Cincinnati and say 50% of my lineups. You don't want these to add up to more than 200%. But I'm telling the optimizer that I want Houston, Seattle, and Cincinnati primarily. If the optimizer still sees other plays it likes better, it's going to tell me that when I rerun those lineups, it's not going to have the Houston in it that I want. That's okay. That's telling me the optimizer sees something suboptimal with what I'm doing. And in that case, I'm going to start listening to the optimizer. Now, I go to the optimal mode, I switch it to tournament mode. Optimal mode is going to throw higher priced guys in there all the time. Tournament mode is going to mix them up a little bit better in terms of your bats. Instead of getting a 1, 2, 3 stack in all 5 of my 12 lineups for Houston, instead I'm going to get a 1, 3, 7, 5, 7, 9, 1, 2, 4. It's going to mix it up a little bit for me. And that's what I want. When I'm running on a kind of like a tournament type of thing, or if I'm just trying to get a good idea of a good balanced, good feel lineup for cash, I want it to mix those guys around if I'm running 12 lineups. I don't want 12 lineups and have 8 of them be the same. I want them all to differ up, switch it up a little bit, randomly mix, roll the dice in the big Yahtzee cube and dump it out on the table, and then I'll look at it. Then I'll pick which dice I want to play. But I'm setting the optimizer up with my personality, with my formation, with my teams I want it to target, and with my pitchers that I've tweaked the projections on. So it's largely going to spit out my interpretation of the slate. So I can go back, I can read the content, on the site. I can talk to the coaches in Slack. I can go back and I can play with the optimizer, look at the research station, and accumulate my own ideas and formulate my own game plan for tonight, and then make the optimizer give me what I want to see for me. And now I'm no longer just pushing a button. And I'm not a slave to whatever projections they dumped into it on the back end that I don't even know what they used to figure it out. I don't care. I know that it works pretty well, but I think that my way, I'm targeting some good teams tonight based on the numbers that I've seen. So when I go back and put in those stacks like I did, and click optimize, and it's in a 3x3 fashion, now we're going to start going down here. We're going to start picking from what we like to see. So we got Garrett Cole, Mike Leake. Leake jumped up in there a good bit. So what I might do is I can also run over here to Mike Leake, and I didn't want to see much of him tonight. Where'd he go? Wow, 6 lineups. All right, Mike, out you go. I'm going to change you down to 28. Change your percentage down to 28. See how I changed it to 28? And now I'm just going to dump him. I'm going to keep it in mind. If I want to come back and run a lineup with him, I'll just lock him in and do it that way. But now damn. Why does it like Mike Leake? It must be wanting to use some of these bats against Garrett Cole or whatever else. But I could also take Mike Leake completely out of the player pool by unchecking the box, and now he won't show up in squat. So if I play with these things and start getting a little impatient, there's always ways to just throw the steroids on it and just make it do what you want it to do. But I do it kind of slowly so that I can see it develop and I can start analyzing as I go. So Molly gets the lead, Cole, Molly, Cole, whatever. Okay, Gurriel, Altuve, Reddick. There's my 3. And then Gallo, DeShields, Beltre, 3. There's a 3x3 Houston, Texas stack. Okay? So it's doing what I want it to do. Gurriel, so Fisher, Reddick. Okay, so there's 3 of those. Cruz, Segura, Odor, Gallo, and wherever Beckham's playing, it's a 3x3 stack there. Zunino, Cruz. Wow. I wish I just am not paying attention. I don't know where I haven't used him yet this year. I don't know where Gordon Beckham's playing this year. Might be Seattle. Texas is Odor. Nope, this is Houston, Seattle probably. Now, I mean, I hate to sound like a real dumbass in front of you guys, but I really don't think too much when it comes to this stuff. I should be the poster child for being consistent in MLB and winning in MLB without knowing everything. I don't know, what Jose Peraza's birthday is, and if he's, if he ate his Wheaties this morning and, he tends to hit out towards the barrel of the bat on curveballs, but in on the handle on sliders to left-handed batters that are pitching in the 5th inning on a Tuesday with the wind blowing out at 13.77 miles per hour. I don't care about that shit. I don't need to know that to be successful in baseball. I'm using these tools and using the work that's provided to me. Houston again, Texas, and then Seattle. So there's 3 Houston, 3 Texas, 3 Seattle. You know what? Did I even put Cincinnati on this list? I'm not seeing any Cincinnati popping into the hitter stacks. There they are. The optimizer is not liking Cincinnati, so I'm going to take that into consideration. I may go back and force it. There's a Cincinnati guy, Cincinnati, but that's only 2. That's more Houston and Seattle. See, Cincinnati, which I wouldn't play Billy Hamilton, dudes. I mean, he can break a slate in a GPP, but I wouldn't play him in cash. Doesn't get on base. Speaking of which, I'll go back and show you that in a little bit too. McCutcheon. So what you're seeing is the mixing. Now, if I don't like those mixes and I want more Cincinnati, I should theoretically be able to go down here and drop these guys out. Up my percentage of Cincinnati, right? Let's do a 4x3 stacking. And let's watch what happens to this. Still no Cincy. Duvall, Winker, Votto, it's a 3 stack. Okay, because it doesn't like Cincinnati. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a 4 stack, 3rd on the list. And then followed by 3 Cincinnati, 3 Seattles. You want to run 4 Cincy's and 3 Seattles? There you go. But if I come down more and see it again, you know, it'll be a different set of guys. That's the idea of the optimizer, mixing those lineups. And so I can start I'm just going to start picking from here. What I'll do is I'll say, I like that lineup there. I like that lineup. I like this lineup here, and who's in it? So there's my 3. Now I want to go take 3 of these and go run them in the same cash games, a couple of dollars worth of 50-50s, a small league like a 10-man league, and maybe a tournament, and then do that with these 3 lineups and do each one of them $2 50-50, $1 10-man league, $1 GPP, and it's been $4 per lineup, $12 on the day. There you go. If I want to really add to it, I can doctor the DS, play with it, and say I like that lineup and that lineup. And I'm going to watch my pitchers: Garrett Cole, Molly, and Garrett Cole. So I've got 4 Garrett Coles and a Molly on 5 lineups. Maybe I do $20 today, and I throw $4 on each of those 5 lineups. Maybe I take all 5 of those lineups and I only run them in a multi-entry GPP and take my shot that way. Maybe I run them in, 5 head-to-heads each and take my shot on $25 worth of head-to-heads. Whatever it is that I want to do, that's what the coaching in the Army can teach you, is contest selection and stuff like that. But this is just a basic idea of using the very, very basic numbers, massaging the tool a little bit to get what you want out of the tool, and taking those lineups and running them out there in contest. It doesn't take long. What are we at, 27 minutes? And that was with me rambling your ear off. If I go back really quick into the research station and I go back to today's batter matchups, I will show you what I mean by OBP and how it applies to cash. I think I showed you this a little bit yesterday, but let's say I use Cincinnati. Oops, I got to turn these guys off. That was a mistake I made yesterday. I wondered why the player pool was so short. It was because I kept on the first base and the catcher. But now there's all of Cincinnati, and they're facing a left-hander in tie block. I come all the way over to, versus lefties. There we go. And I'm looking for OBP versus lefties. I want guys getting on base. Blandino and Irvin aren't going to be playing. But Votto gets on base. Suarez is getting on base against lefties. These are the 2 guys that I'm going to like. Now, I may go into the domination station again, and when I'm playing with my projections and playing with my numbers, I may go down to Suarez, and I may all of a sudden love him so that it forces him in because, he gets on base versus lefties. You can do that. Okay? Let's say that I see that those OBPs, there's only 2 guys on there that are really all that usable, so now all of a sudden I don't really want to attack them and stack them that much. And I go to Seattle. Let's see if Seattle shows up any differently. Seattle is facing a lefty as well. So I scroll all the way over here to lefties. OBP 387, 353, not that great, So maybe I'm not expecting as much out of Seattle. As maybe they're in a great spot. Go to Houston. Right-handers. So now on this one, I scroll all the way over past the left-handers because I don't care about lefties. Care about how they do against righties. So I look at the OBP versus righties, 402, 360, 350, 330, 370. Reddick's in play, Altuve's in play, Bregman to a certain degree, Correa, Springer. You know, I mean, there you go, right? That's just looking at one stat. You want to use all of these different stats together, but if you're breaking it down to the very, very, very simplest terms, pay attention to the stats that really tell you something. OBP tells you who isn't making outs. They draw walks, they get singles, they get doubles, whatever. Okay. WOBA tells you who's doing a little more thumping with their bat. Who's hit, you know, it doesn't treat all hits. It's not saying that, okay, the guy reached base, so a walk is the equivalent of a home run, because we all know in DFS that's bullshit. So WOBA takes into account more of, it rewards a home run a little bit more than it does a walk, but it still gives you credit for the walk. So WOBA gives you that mix of, you know, hitting for power and hitting, you know, reaching base. I want guys in cash that are not getting me zeros. That's where I'm focused. But I also want guys that do have a little bit of power and can drive in runs and hit home runs and things, because that's where I'm really going to score. So WOBA is a good catch-all stat. OBP is a good default stat for cash games when you're deciding between a couple of players. Take the guy hitting higher in the order with the higher OBP, you know, and that's a tiebreaker. But I'm generally running off of WOBA. If I had to pick just one key stat this year, it would be WOBA right now. What you're doing is you're using these numbers and using these stats in a very, very simplistic form to identify, and using our tools to identify what pitcher you like, what bats, what teams you like, and then what bats in those teams you're going to use. And then you turn around, take them into the Domination Station Optimizer, and you start tweaking those projections a little bit until it starts bringing those guys to the front. And then you let it fill in the cracks with the little guy from San Francisco or the little guy from LA who I'm not paying attention to tonight because they're not in a dominant matchup. Sure, they can have great games. Sure, they can fill in the gaps. I don't need to do a ton of research on them. My research already told me focus on Cincinnati, Seattle, and Houston. Focus on Garrett Cole, maybe a little bit of Molly or maybe a little Leak if you like what the Domination Station threw at you. Focus on those guys, build those, or my core around those, play with the optimizer to where it's mostly showing those guys and the hotter hitters in those offenses, and then let the optimizer fill in the rest of the cracks for you. Go through, run 10, 12, 14, 15 lineups. That doesn't mean that I'm going to go enter all 15 lineups into tournaments. I may only be picking 3 or 4. But if I only run 3, I'm forced to pick from just those 3. If I run 12, I can pick my 3 favorite combinations. And the more I pick from 10 to 12 to 20 to 25 lineups, the percentages are going to mix and match a little bit more, and I'm going to see a little better combinations. I'm not really narrowing my focus, narrowing my mind down so much. I think people get too much into pigeonholing their mind into, I need to have a tight player pool, I need to have just of this and just of that, and that's okay. And that, to me, is where I was maybe a couple of years ago. But as I get more experience with DFS and I start growing and expanding and talking to our coaches all the time, what I'm starting to realize is that a wider frame of thought is a little bit more an all-encompassing macro view of the slate is a little bit better, because then you just let the cream rise to the top with the tools and the sophistication that the industry is developing for you. And then when you can build on that and trust in that, you tweak it a little bit to your personality, but largely let the machines fill in the cracks for you. I hope that helps. I hope that sorts through some of them. I hope that gives you something to do today. I would focus on smaller slates, less information. I would focus on really knocking out that chalk. Another way to do that would be to turn Houston off here, and let's go see who the highest rated bat on the slate is. Suarez, Duvall, Belt, Cruz, Trout. Okay, Trout doesn't look like he's in such a spot tonight. Look for the heavy chalk. A lot of people love Trout. He's facing Garrett Cole. People using Garrett Cole are not going to use Trout. But what we're looking at is the real dominant chalky guys that you always see everybody want to use on 3-game slates and 4-game slates. They oftentimes force those guys into their lineup, and I need to determine, can I fade him or do I have to use him? Tonight, everybody's going to be fading him, so I might actually want to use him in some GPPs and force him in there. I'd go lock him into the optimizer and make it spin everything else around him based on the stacks that I set up. But it doesn't look like a real massively chalky guy is going to be in a situation where he's a must-use tonight. So you can probably play pretty balanced. Some nights you will find that Trout's facing a bad pitcher. He's in a smash spot. He's also running hot the past week or two. And you just know that in a 3-game slate, everybody's going to start right there. In which case, in cash, you eat it. Roster him. Eat the chalk. Fade him in a GPP lineup. But eat that chalk and Garrett Cole tonight, because that seems to be the dominant place people are going to go in cash, and hide yourself inside those numbers and then get off on a little bit different tangents with the bats and hope that makes the difference. But use the simple stats to point that out to you. Use your DFSA grade. Use your WOBA. Use your OBP. Don't focus on anything else for a while. Block all that crap out. Use that, tweak the DS to your favor, and then start getting on the winning track. And then as you're getting on the winning track and you're starting to pick up a little bit of nuance, then you can start leaning towards ISO. You can start leaning towards, a little bit more specific, what's the pitcher giving up against right-handers or left-handers, or add games and build on bigger slates or whatever. You may find, if you're like me, you may find you never need a different method. You never need to really expand your approach. I expand my approach because I do a lot of writing and I talk to a lot of guys, and it's important for me to know a lot of this stuff. But I don't honestly use a ton of it. I do when it's handy, or when the slate dictates. I got a lot of tiebreakers. I know what to go to. I know what to use. General rule, I try to keep it hyper simple because I love teaching new guys how to win. This is how you're going to win in MLB. You're going to keep it hyper simple. You're going to stay on small slates until you're comfortable expanding the process and the information out onto bigger slates. And you're going to use the basic stats, the WOBAs, the OBPs, that type of stuff. And you're going to just target the best guys in the best spots. And you're going to use our tools as a VIP to do it. So once again, follow the comment section, the link in there, dfsarmy.com/ref/3. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Come in inside, ask me questions. I make videos based on the content that I hear guys ask. This is very specifically targeted towards a guy today. And so hopefully that helps him, but hopefully it also helps a lot of you. A, learn our tools. B, understand what we're given and the coaching that we offer and the feedback that we take and that we kind of use to tweak our methods to cater to you and make you guys better players, because that's what this thing's all about. It doesn't work without you guys, but you've got to be VIPs to really max out the benefits. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you tomorrow or the next day, or hope, down the road sometime whenever I get time to make another video. Peace out. Hope to see you on the inside.